God and God's faithfulness to this congregation. I declare to you this day, brothers and sisters, that the Rossville United Methodist Church is a church that is built on the rock of Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God. Let all the people say,
Amen.
And now I will invite Dean Page to come forward. And I think just as soon as Dean is finished, Bill, if you will come forward. And then as soon as Bill is done, Jim, if you will come forward. And if you'll step over there, then you'll have that microphone. Right?
I don't know how I could have had a better lead-in to this part of our program than we've had from Anderson this morning. I would like to introduce to you those members of the building committee that are here this morning. Some of them stood up, or I think most of them stood up a while ago, but I want to speak those who are not here. Mr. Ed Claycamp, Mrs. Barbara Aiken, Mrs. Linda Gentry, Mr. Jim Hayes, Mr. Scott Kelsey, Mr. Bill Larson, Mr. Bob Matchey, Mr. Greg Warden, and myself, who was chairman of this committee. Also, I'd like to mention Ruth Larson, who acted as the treasurer for this process. I want to touch on a couple of things that I think were important to me, at least, in this congregation. When we started out as a committee, we agreed that we might cuss and discuss and talk till midnight and vote 5-4 on an item. But when we went out the door, it was 9-0. And that carried out through the entire project. And I'm sure that that was God's presence with us, that went through that whole process. Jim mentioned earlier about the cookbooks. That was one of the things that the church done to raise funds. How many of you were present at the box supper that we had at the hall? That, to me, was one of the highlights. The ladies, for those of you who don't know what a box supper is, the ladies brought boxes, and then the fellas, they were auctioned off. And there was some pretty exciting bidding going on for some of those boxes. And I know that was a real fun night for all of us. One of the things that happened in the course of the building committee, we were studying the plans and the projects and the different things that went here and there. And we had talked about the placement of the bathrooms. And one of the members of the committee, who remained anonymous, wanted to put a bathroom in the room over here. Well, we thought, gee whiz, there's a bathroom right out there in the hall. Why do we have to have a bathroom in there? She said the last thing that bride's going to do before she goes up to the aisle is go to the bathroom. So as you know, there's a bathroom in that room. Bill?
What a lead in. I'd like to talk about some words and phrases that we've heard in this congregation for a number of years that tell a story of the time before we started the building program. One of the words is to persevere. How many of you ever have watched the movie, a Clint Eastwood movie called Josie Wales? Well, there was a partner of Josie Wales, an old Indian who suffered through the trail of tears, and he was told by a white man to persevere. And the old Indian was trying to figure out what that meant because there was no word in his language that came close. Persevere is one of the things that this congregation has done. But I'd also like to talk about on chairs, and there was an urge to have cues, and at the end of as I'm told the story, at the end of a Sunday service, the exit doors to the sanctuary were closed, and a man got up in front and said, "All right, we're going to stay here until we raise enough money to buy a pew." And they did. And they did it. And later on, 50 years ago or so, 60, a man had a vision of the need for additional Sunday school rooms. And he knew something about construction, and lo and behold, it happened. Now, at the time that was being built, there was also some other things going on, and one was the floods in Rossville. And the church basement would fill up, and the piano would float, and things like that. When all these things were going on, another phrase comes to mind that was brought to us by a substitute minister that came here a couple times or more, and he would often use the phrase "in the context of the time." So these events happened and if you think back to the context of the time, it makes a little more sense. All this time that the Sunday school wing was being built, and the sanctuary had been built in the years before then, the pews and building progress was going on in the context of the time. Funerals occurred, and if any of you who were present in our old church at a very, very large funeral, when the main sanctuary was full and the south sanctuary was full and the basement was full, and we stood in the basement like this and listening to the floor upstairs creak. This is the hand of God. Makes me wonder. Little did we know, after looking behind the beautiful mahogany paneling in the basement, how the termites had eaten the end of the main support beam that ran down the center of the church to get clear off. It wasn't resting on the foundation anymore at all. A man had the vision that this church needed to come about, and there was a house on this lot, standing about the size, at the same place as the fellowship hall is now. And that house was given to the church, and it was used for storage, it was used for Sunday school classes, it was used for this, that, the other thing. And one time when it was empty, some of us had to